Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, your soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now. You made it through another year. That alone is a testimony of endurance, spiritual resilience, divine support, and that mysterious grace that carries you even on the days you could not carry yourself. Maybe this year didn't look like the one you imagined. Maybe you faced disappointments you never voiced. Maybe you had private battles no one else saw. And maybe you had victories that felt smaller than you hoped, or growth that came through pressure you didn't ask for. But hear this clearly. Your soul is whispering. There is more to you. Don't step into the next year carrying what was never meant to follow you. Hi, I'm back with another episode of Keys to Soul Progress. And today we're going deeper than resolution, deeper than reflection, deeper than performance-based spirituality. We're talking about, is your soul really asking for a spiritual reset? The key we're focusing on is spiritual reset. A great time to do it as we are at the end of the year. This is not a reinvention driven by pressure, not a list of resolutions born from self-judgment, but a profound internal realignment rooted in divine timing, divine wisdom, sacred stillness, and the spiritual laws that govern inner transformation. And one of those laws is the law of love and compassion to yourself and to those around you. I'm going to be talking about stories, soul lessons, ancient teachings, biblical anchors, and practices that can help you enter 2026, not running, but rooted. Most people carry emotional, mental, and spiritual clutter without realizing it. They enter a new year with a weight of unspoken disappointments, unresolved fears, strained relationships, old self-concepts, subconscious guilt, shame for small mistakes, and sometimes, yes, spiritual fatigue that has been silently building. But there's a truth here. Your soul cannot expand while your hands are still gripping what was meant to end. Did you hear that? Your soul cannot expand while your hands are still gripping what was meant to end. This is a spiritual law echoed across traditions. Release precedes renewal. Surrender precedes strength. Emptying precedes filling. I once knew someone who packed every trip as though she were preparing for exile. Multiple coats, 3 kinds of shoes, backup outfits, and more backups. Every departure began with stress. She dragged her suitcase through airports with the sound of wheels begging for mercy due to the weight inside that luggage. One winter morning, running late for a flight, her suitcase finally gave up. The zipper ripped, the contents exploded across the floor. Scarves, lotions, books, hair tools, even items she forgot she packed. People stared. She froze. Then something strange happened. She laughed. For the first time, she saw with clarity she was carrying more than she needed, more than she ever used, and more than she ever intended to hold. She repacked the bare essentials and traveled light for the first time in her life. That moment changed the way she approached not just travel, but life. Your soul may be asking for the same. Ancient texts teach, nothing new can fill a vessel that is already full. Scripture acknowledges the category of emotional burdens, those quiet heaviness that aren't sins, but still slow your spiritual stride. And here's something to reflect on. Where do I feel weighted down? Not by events themselves, but by my attachment to them. If you feel tired right now, you're not alone. And you're not weak. Year-end spiritual fatigue is universal because transitions are mirrors. They show you what wasn't healed, what you avoided, what you suppressed, what your soul outgrew, what you've been managing instead of transforming, and what you've been carrying instead of releasing. This is not spiritual failure. It is spiritual intelligence surfacing. Your soul is telling you, I cannot hold the next season and the old one at the same time. And this goes across cultures. The transition before a new calling is always marked by several things: isolation, disorientation, discomfort, fatigue, reflection, and stripping away of the old identity. Even Jesus went into the wilderness before stepping into public ministry. And Moses went into Midian before becoming a deliverer. And David went to caves before becoming king. There is always a clearing before the calling. And here's a story. When Moses fled from Egypt, he didn't know he was stepping into preparation. He wasn't ready. He wasn't confident. He wasn't spiritually on fire. He was exhausted, discouraged, and hiding from his own past. That is where God met him. Not in triumph, not in clarity, but in the desert of unreadiness. The burning bush didn't appear when Moses felt strong. It appeared when Moses had nothing left but willingness. And some of your greatest spiritual assignments will meet you in moments you feel least ready. Think about this. Where am I trying to push through instead of pausing long enough to hear God? Because renewal is not an event, it is a cycle. a sacred rhythm. If you violate the rhythm, the soul becomes tired, anxious, confused, and overwhelmed, and feels disconnected from the mediator, the Christic energy that is always trying to guide and help through Christ, through the Creator, God, through Atman, through the I Am presence, always trying to help us. But as I said, if you violate the rhythm, the soul becomes tired, anxious, confused, or overwhelmed. Think about this as an expansive way of looking at a cycle of renewal as you're contemplating 2025 and moving into 2026. The first thing, release. Clearing the old energy, letting go of what no longer aligns. So it does require you to reflect on the year, reflect on the thoughts, the feelings, the actions you've taken. And then, number 2, rest. Have this sacred pause, creating space for spiritual stillness. And then 3, receive divine input. Listen for guidance, intuition, inspired insight. Ask your higher self, what do I need to see here? What do I need to just be with? Not trying to do, but just be with. And receive the guidance, the inspiration. Number 4 is realign, adjusting your direction, course correcting your identity, priorities, intentions. You're seeing it as it is, and you're being flexible enough to say, okay, definitely can do that one differently, or that was okay, but could do better. Number 5 is rebirth, stepping into the new season, stepping into the newness of who you are that allows you to step into the new year. And that means living as the transformed version of yourself. So you're taking all this information that you're reflecting on to help you to be a newer version of yourself, or as I say, being your best self. Many people skip straight to step 5 and wonder why nothing changes, because they have not released, rest, received, realigned in order to have the rebirth. Because in Songs, chapter 46, version 10, we know, be still and know. And I like to say, be still and know that you are God. You're a representative of God. You're an expression of God. And so, in our process of stillness, it means it's not inactivity. Stillness is spiritual receptivity. It is the gateway to knowing. Knowing is the foundation of wisdom. And wisdom is the foundation of aligned action. Without stillness, people enter a new year with noise instead of guidance. So here's an activity that you can do. And I'm going to call it the empty chair. Everyone has a chair in their house. It can pull out a chair or go to the couch or your favorite spot that has a chair. What I want you to do is visualize an empty chair in front of you. Or you can pull the chair up and just see it as being empty in front of you. And what I want you to do is place into it the disappointments, the heaviness, that you may experience around your heart or around situations that have happened to you, the resentment or resentments that have occurred because of interactions with people and what was done in those interactions. You're letting go, or you're putting into that chair your fears. You're just kind of putting it there. You're thinking about them, you're releasing them, you're putting them into the chair. Let it pile up. You're putting into that empty chair the expectations that didn't happen. We all have them. Expectations, hopes for things. But you're putting it into the chair. The timeliness you outgrew. Maybe you haven't reflected on the fact that your timetables were a little bit different than what occurred this year. You're putting into the chair the versions of yourself you no longer want to be. You're thinking about those things. You're just putting it into the chair, just allowing to be piled up. And then say aloud, I release what my soul does not need to bring into 2026. I release it. I let it go. I gladly release it. And in peace and in harmony, feel my being so that I can be able to release these outworn things and know clearly it's not serving my soul and it does not need to be brought into 2026. It's like this luggage, seeing all the stuff that fell onto the floor in the airport. Some things you don't want to take with you any longer. You want to put it into the trash and you move on. Think about these things as you're reflecting here. The disappointments, the heaviness, the resentment, the fear, the expectations that didn't happen, the timeliness you outgrew, and the version of yourself you no longer want to be. And this is the beginning of renewal. Your soul has specific needs, not vague, abstract desires, but real longing rooted in divine design. Your soul has an affinity for truth, authenticity, stillness, purpose, surrender, inner clarity, divine connection, and peace. Your soul has a desire for love, divine love, uplifting love. We create the space and just sit with that awareness that these are the things that are true to the soul, that helps the soul move forward, move in the progress of making a reset around these things of truth, authenticity, stillness, purpose, surrender, inner clarity, divine connection, peace, love. You're reorienting around these things as you're putting the other stuff into the chair and emptying. Because most people feed the personality instead of their soul. And what their soul needs are, which I just mentioned. And instead, what we find that happens subtly or overtly, control, predictability, wanting approval, comfort, outcome obsession, and fear-based planning. When we're moving in that mode, it doesn't serve the soul. It actually creates greater clutteredness internally within you. It creates that feeling of being overwhelmed, anxious, sad, or angry. And you're carrying these energies of density that you do not, and you do not have to bring into 2026. When the personality leads the soul starves. I'm going to give you a story. And let's call her Penelope. Penelope had a lamp that flickered every night. She tried fixing the bulb, and she tried tightening the screws, and she repositioned the shade, and she cleaned the glass, and even bought a new expensive bulb, but nothing worked. And one evening, a visitor walked in and said, "Your lamp isn't the problem. The outlet is." The lamp wasn't plugged into the source. And suddenly, everything made sense. Some of the dimming in your light this year wasn't because you were weak. It was because you were unplugged from rest, from truth, from God, from your spiritual practices, from your inner knowing. Have you ever thought about that? That we can unplug, we can get unplugged, thinking that we may be plugged and try to do all the things to try to get the light on. But we've got to go to the source. Are we plugged in? So think about this. Where have I been operating unplugged from peace, from prayer, from spiritual discipline, from my genuine self, my soul, the substance of my life, from the divine guidance that's available to you? Where have I been forcing what God wanted me to release? Reflect on that a minute. So as you're reflecting on that, let's dive a little bit deeper. Here is the framework for a full spiritual reset, the kind your soul has been asking for. 1, release. Forgive the moments you mishandled. Forgive the mistakes you made while tired. Forgive the doors that didn't open. Forgive the conversations you never had. Forgive the version of yourself who was doing the best they could with the awareness they knew or had. Release bitterness. Release timelines. Release narratives that keep you small. This is not denial. This is liberation. Release these things so that you expand to be the greatness of who you really are. When God is in the equation and you're walking a spiritual path, there is greatness in you. We sometimes look over it, around it, underneath it, but it's right there with us. Number 2 is realign. What God is highlighting. And the realign is asking deeper questions of yourself. When you're on a spiritual path, you have to be willing to ask questions to help you, your soul, the Christic energy within you, the Creator, to know that I want to learn, I want to grow. So what are those questions that you can ask yourself? Think about these. What themes were repeating this year? What did I resist that I now need to embrace? What did God keep drawing my attention toward? What strengths emerged this year that surprised me? And where did I feel most spiritually alive? And I got one more. Is where did I love abundantly? It doesn't have to be these great big things. It can be small things as you're thinking about these questions. Realignment is not about resolution. It's about returning to the path your soul already knows. Number 3 is remember your divine identity. And in biblical language calls you in the image of God, the temple of the Spirit, the light of the world, co-heir with Christ. Ancient teachings call this the inner flame, the spark of the divine placed within you, the spirit spark. We also call it the threefold flame, the flame of love, wisdom, and strength. Being able to be aware that there is an essence within you that is alive. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And what it means, it represents a quality of God. The God above us is the God within us. The God we honor and see in others is the God that we honor in ourselves. Your identity is not your past. Your identity is the light you carry. That spirit spark, that threefold flame, that essence. Remember who you are. Remember who walks with you. Remember what you were created to be. You were created to be an outpost of the divine. As Jesus was representing, he was an outpost of the divine. And why not for us to emulate the same? So number 4 is related to your soul does not need the blueprint for all of 2026. It only needs the next step. You can't eat an entire elephant. You can't eat an entire pie. Well, maybe you can. But maybe it's several pies all at once. But you get my point. That we want to do things step by step. And how you do that is ask these types of questions I'm going to give to you. What is one thing God is nudging me toward? What is one thing I know I must release? What is one practice I must restore? What is one door I must close? Guidance comes in whispers, not megaphones. Reflect on those questions. They will serve you well. The 5th is rededicate. It's kind of like a quiet covenant that you're having with yourself. You can say, I enter 2026 aligned with truth, anchored in peace, and available to God's purpose, to his will, not just your will. Let it settle into your spirit. And I'll say it one more time. I enter 2026 aligned with truth, anchored in peace, and available to God's purpose, God's will. Reflect for a minute. And as we're moving towards our close, in your reflections about moving from 2025 into 2026, you are not stepping into the new year empty. You're stepping in with wisdom, divine partnership, with clarity, with renewed spiritual rhythm, with sacred awareness, with strength born from inner work. The year behind you is not wasted. It's like a compost. And from the compost comes growth. Something to think about. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.